When my husband said his cousin was coming to stay, I imagined an awkward young man with luggage full of video games and bad habits. Instead, Devon arrived tall, quiet, and way too observant. He watched everything. How I moved, how I smiled, how I filled the silence when my husband was away. There was something unsettling about how easily he blended into our routine. I should have trusted my instincts the night I heard the floorboards creak, but I didn't. By the time I realized he wasn't in the guest room, it was too late. He was already in my bed. When Daniel, my husband, told me his cousin Liam would be staying with us for a week, I didn't think twice about it. I had met Liam once years ago at a family barbecue. He had been just another face in the crowd, tall, a bit quiet, polite enough, but unremarkable. At least that's what I thought then. When he arrived at our door that rainy Thursday evening, suitcase in hand, and a smile that could charm stone, I realized something had changed. Or maybe I had never really looked before. His shoulders were broader, his jaw more defined, and his confidence filled the doorway before he even spoke. "Hi, I hope I'm not too early," he said, voice warm and deep. I wasn't expecting the flutter in my stomach. Daniel pulled him into a hug like they were long-lost brothers, which in a way they were. The two of them had grown up close, closer than cousins, practically like siblings, but work and distance had pulled them apart. Liam's visit was meant to reconnect and reminisce. "Babe, can you show Liam to the guest room?" Daniel asked, already pulling out beers from the fridge. "Of course," I replied, gesturing for Liam to follow me upstairs. As I walked up the steps, I suddenly felt hyper-aware of my outfit, just yoga pants and an oversized t-shirt. Nothing remotely seductive, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. When I glanced back, Liam quickly looked away. The guest room was modest but cozy. I showed him where the towels were, pointed to the bathroom, and asked if he needed anything else. He smiled. "No, this is perfect. Thanks for having me." His eyes lingered on mine a beat longer than they needed to. That's when I knew he noticed me, too. Over the next few days, Liam made himself at home. He was the perfect guest, offering to help with dishes, making us laugh with old stories from their childhood, and taking the dog for walks without being asked. Daniel adored having him around. I pretended to feel the same. But I was on edge, not because of anything Liam did overtly, but because of how aware I became of his presence. Every time he entered a room, I felt my posture change. I started wearing lipstick in the morning again, something I hadn't bothered with in months. I told myself it was just because we had a guest. Friday evening, Daniel was stuck at work late. Liam and I sat on the back deck sipping wine. The sun had dipped below the trees and the warm air buzzed with crickets. "I forgot how peaceful it is here," he said, looking out into the dark yard. "You're welcome to come visit more often," I replied, instantly, regretting how that might have sounded. He turned to me slowly. Would Daniel like that? I laughed nervously. "Of course, your family." He tilted his head slightly. "And what about you? Would you like that?" I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. Something passed between us, an invisible current, undeniable and dangerous. I cleared my throat. "I should go check the laundry." He stood too. "I'll help." No, it's fine, I said too quickly. Just enjoy the evening. Inside, I leaned against the washing machine and closed my eyes, heart racing. What was I doing? This was Daniel's cousin. This was insane. But that night, I couldn't sleep. And when I passed the hallway to the guest room, I noticed his light was still on. Saturday morning, Liam offered to cook breakfast. Daniel hung over from drinks the night before, slept in. Liam and I moved around the kitchen like a silent dance. When he reached over me to grab a pan, his hand grazed my hip. Not by accident. Neither of us spoke of it. The day passed like any other. A trip to the farmer's market, an afternoon movie, burgers on the grill. Liam was just another guest. On the surface, under the surface, something was unraveling. Sunday evening, Daniel left for an overnight work trip out of town. It was last minute, and I barely had time to kiss him goodbye. Liam's still here, he said as he grabbed his keys. He'll keep you company. Company? That's what I was afraid of. As night fell, the air between Liam and me thickened with tension. He offered to pour wine again, and I declined. I couldn't pretend anymore. I was too aware of what might happen if I let my guard down. You've been quiet today, he said, sitting beside me on the couch. I'm just tired, I replied. Can I ask you something? I turned to him. What? If I weren't Daniel's cousin, would you feel this pull, too? My breath caught. He leaned in slightly, his voice low. Because I do, and I know I shouldn't, but I can't stop thinking about you. I stood up abruptly. This isn't fair. You shouldn't say that, but it's true, Liam. I said, voice shaking. I'm married. I know. And I would never do anything to hurt Daniel. Then stop. He stood too, hands raised in surrender. I will. I just needed to say it once. I nodded and walked toward the stairs. Good night. But as I lay in bed alone, covers pulled tight, I couldn't shake the way he had looked at me or the way it had made me feel. And that's when I heard it. Footsteps in the hallway. Then my bedroom door creaked open. The sound of the bedroom door creaking open jolted me upright in bed. My heart thudded loudly in the silence, and I strained my ears, hoping I'd imagined it. But I hadn't. There he was, Liam, standing just inside the doorway. The dim hallway light cast shadows across his face, but even in the dark, I could see his eyes locked on mine. Body language didn't match the words. He wasn't uncertain. He was waiting, watching. You shouldn't be in here, I said, pulling the sheet closer to my chest as if it were armor. I know. He didn't move, but I had to see you. Just one more time before I leave tomorrow. My stomach twisted. That was true. He was flying out in the morning. I should have been relieved. Instead, a part of me felt disappointed. I don't know what you think is happening between us, I said, forcing firmness into my voice, but it can't happen. You're Daniel's cousin. He stepped forward slowly, like testing water with his toes. I know. Believe me, I've spent every night here telling myself to back off. But then I see you in the kitchen or laughing at something stupid I say, and it's like I forget every reason why I shouldn't want you. My throat dried up. I should have shouted, told him to get out. I should have reminded him that I was married, that this was wrong on every possible level. But instead, I sat frozen, watching him take another step toward the bed. Liam, I said, my voice cracking this time. This isn't fair. You're putting me in an impossible position. He knelt beside the bed now, his face level with mine. I'll go if you want me to. I just need to know. Have I imagined this? I stared into his eyes, searching for something. Shame, guilt, hesitation. I didn't find it. What I did find terrified me more. Desire. Desire that mirrored my own. I shook my head, breaking the moment. This is a mistake. He looked down, nodding slowly. Then I'll go. He rose to his feet, his shadow stretching across the room as he moved toward the door. My body tensed with every step he took away. But then he paused. I could have stayed silent. I didn't. Liam, I said. He stopped but didn't turn around. I haven't imagined it either. The silence between us pulsed, thick and electric. Then, without a word, he turned and walked back toward me. Every footstep was deliberate, quiet, but powerful. He reached the edge of the bed, eyes asking the question his lips didn't dare voice. I moved over. I don't know why I did it. I don't know what part of me gave in first. Loneliness, curiosity, or some reckless hunger I hadn't acknowledged in years. Maybe all three. But when he slipped under the sheets beside me, it felt terrifyingly natural. For a moment, we just lay there facing each other, not touching. The air crackled with tension. His hand reached out slowly, brushing a strand of hair from my face. I didn't stop him. His fingertips traced my cheek and I closed my eyes, a sharp gasp escaping my lips. Every nerve in my body stood at attention. I've thought about this, he whispered. Since the first night. I opened my eyes and looked at him so close now I could feel his breath on my skin. What happens after this? I asked. He didn't answer. His lips found mine soft, uncertain at first, then hungry. I responded before I could stop myself, kissing him back like I had nothing to lose. The way he touched me was different from Daniel, more careful, more curious. He explored, not assumed. My heart thundered as our limbs tangled, as the barrier between what we wanted and what we shouldn't have crumbled beneath the weight of the moment. Everything blurred. The sheets, our clothes, time itself. And then, as quickly as it had begun, it was over. We laid there in silence, the tension replaced now with something heavier. Not regret, not yet, but fear, realization. I turned away from him, facing the wall. You should go, I said softly. He didn't argue. He slipped out of the bed, dressed in silence, and walked back into the hallway. The door clicked shut behind him. I was alone again, but not the same. That night, I didn't sleep. My mind was a hurricane of emotions. Guilt, excitement, dread, confusion. What had I done? And what was I going to do now? In the morning, Daniel texted that his meeting was done early and he'd be home by lunch. I stared at the message for minutes, heart pounding. Liam was packing in the guest room when I passed by. He didn't look at me, and I didn't say anything. There were no smiles, no lingering glances, just silence. By the time Daniel walked through the front door, Liam was already gone. "Everything okay while I was away?" Daniel asked, setting down his bag. I forced a smile. "Yeah, everything's fine." I lied because nothing was fine anymore. The day after Liam left was filled with silence, but it wasn't the peaceful kind. It was the heavy, pressing kind, the kind that wrapped itself around your chest and made it hard to breathe. I went through the motions with Daniel as if nothing had happened. We made breakfast. We caught up on his trip. We even laughed over a silly show we used to watch. But my mind wasn't there. It was stuck in the memory of Liam's fingertips, his breath against my neck, the quiet guilt he left behind. Daniel didn't suspect a thing. He even mentioned how happy he was that Liam came. He really needed a break, Daniel said, stirring his coffee. I think staying here helped him reset. I nodded, keeping my eyes on the table. Yeah, he seemed better. But he wasn't the only one changed. I felt like I'd crossed into a new version of myself, one I wasn't sure I liked. I told myself it had just been one night, one mistake. People mess up. People move on. And then Liam texted me. It was 2 days later. I was at the grocery store when my phone buzzed. Just seeing his name made my stomach twist. "Liam, I can't stop thinking about you. Call me." I didn't respond. I tucked my phone into my purse and pretended it never happened, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. That night when Daniel fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My fingers hovered over Liam's number more than once. And on the third night, I caved. It was a short call. Quiet. Nervous. He apologized. I apologized, but apologies weren't what we were really there for. "I'm coming back next weekend," he said. My heart skipped. Why? Daniel invited me. He said he wanted to go fishing and thought I'd like to join. He thinks it'll help me relax. Of course, he did. "You can't stay here again." I said, "It's too risky. I already booked a hotel." Liam said, "I just needed to hear your voice." The call ended, but the tension didn't. In fact, it deepened because now I knew he was coming back and worse. I knew I wanted him to. When the weekend arrived, I was a bundle of nerves. Daniel was thrilled to see Liam again, and Liam played the part of the grateful cousin perfectly. He hugged Daniel, complimented my cooking, even brought a bottle of wine. I kept my distance as best I could, but our eyes met more than once. The electricity was back and stronger. That night, Daniel and Liam went out for drinks. I stayed behind, claiming I was too tired. The house was quiet again, but this time it buzzed with anticipation. At 11:42 p.m., Liam texted, "I'm outside." I didn't move at first. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Then, I did the unthinkable. I grabbed a sweater, slipped into shoes, and stepped outside. He was leaning against his car, looking up at the sky. "I shouldn't be here," I said. "I know." We stood in silence. The night air was cool, crisp. Every step I took closer to him felt like a betrayal. Last time, I whispered. It can't happen again. But we both knew it would. He took my hand and I didn't pull away. I followed him into his car, not out of innocence, but out of craving. When he kissed me this time, it wasn't hesitant. It was desperate, familiar. We didn't speak. Words would have only reminded us of the reality we were trying to escape. By the time I returned home, Daniel was already asleep. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, staring at him. Guilt surged through me like a wave, hot and bitter. What was I doing? What kind of wife was I? The next morning, everything felt off. Liam left early, claiming he needed to hit the road before traffic. Daniel didn't question it. He was used to Liam being impulsive. I, on the other hand, was a mess inside. I wanted to rewind time. I wanted to undo the things I had done twice now, but there's no reverse gear on real life. And then the unthinkable happened. 2 days later, Daniel found Liam's hotel keycard in the pocket of my sweater. He walked into the kitchen holding it between his fingers. Hey, what's this? My heart stopped. I reached for the card too quickly. Oh, that's Liam must have dropped it when we were all hanging out. Maybe when I was doing laundry. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Why would Liam's keycard be in your sweater? I couldn't think. My mouth was dry. I stammered something about helping fold his laundry. A ridiculous lie that didn't even convince me. Daniel didn't press. He handed it to me with a half smile. You're always too nice. But the damage was done. His tone had changed slightly, but enough. He was starting to question. Over the next week, Daniel became distant. Not cold, but observant, watching, asking more questions. My nerves were constantly frayed. Then came the final crack. I left my phone unattended in the kitchen while cooking dinner. A message came in from Liam. Can't stop thinking about your skin. I miss you. When I came back into the room, Daniel was holding my phone. He didn't say anything, just looked at me. Who is this? He asked, voice quiet but tight. I froze. Everything stopped. I asked you a question, he repeated, stepping closer. I reached for the phone, but he pulled it away. You've been sleeping with him, he said, more a statement than a question. Tears welled up in my eyes. Daniel, don't lie to me. I didn't because I couldn't. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Daniel walked out that night. Daniel didn't come home that night or the one after. The house felt like a tomb, silent, cold, haunted by everything we didn't say. I tried calling, texting, begging for a chance to explain, but there was nothing to explain that would make what I did right. Liam reached out, too. He apologized again. Said he hadn't meant for things to go so far, that he never wanted to come between Daniel and me. But it was too late for regret. We both crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Eventually, Daniel came back, not to forgive, but to collect his things. He didn't yell or cry. He looked at me like a stranger, like someone he couldn't recognize anymore. I don't hate you, he said. But I can't be with someone who let this happen, who chose to let it happen. His words stayed with me long after he was gone. I spent months trying to understand why I let it happen, what I was searching for, what I was missing. I realized it wasn't about Liam. It was about a part of me that felt invisible, numb, and I made the worst possible choice trying to feel something again. Now I live alone. I'm rebuilding slowly. Not just my life, but my sense of self. Trust once broken is nearly impossible to restore. And love when betrayed leaves a scar that never fully fades. But I carry that scar now as a reminder to never lose myself again.